Prince asked 5 blues legends to teach him: Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, Otis Rush, Koko Taylor, and Jimmy Johnson looked at each other in disbelief. The biggest pop star in the world was asking them for a lesson. What happened next changed Prince's music forever. That October night in Chicago, Prince walked into Kingston Mines as a superstar. He walked out 3 hours later as something far more valuable, a student who finally understood where real music comes from. Kingston Mines was packed with 200 people. Cigarette smoke hung thick, embedded in the walls. The stage was barely big enough for 5 musicians. The floor was sticky from decades of beer and sweat. This was real. This was where blues lived. Tonight, 5 Chicago blues legends were reuniting for the first time in 7 years. Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, Otis Rush, Koko Taylor, Jimmy Johnson. Combined, they had 250 years of blues experience. At 11:52 p.m., a man walked in wearing a plain baseball cap and gray jacket. No makeup, no purple, just a small figure moving quietly to a back corner table. Nobody recognized him. This was a blues club. People came for real music, not pop hits. The man sat down, ordered a Budweiser, and waited. His hands shook slightly. 3 weeks off the parade tour, 50,000 people a night, Rolling Stone covers. But sitting in this dive club, Prince felt like an imposter. 3 nights earlier in Detroit, Prince had been in his hotel room channel surfing when he stumbled onto a PBS documentary about Chicago blues. He watched, mesmerized, as Buddy Guy bent notes on his guitar that seemed to defy physics. He listened to Muddy Waters' voice carry decades of pain and joy in a single phrase. He saw Koko Taylor singing with such raw power that the camera seemed to shake, and he realized something uncomfortable. For all his talent, for all his success, he'd never really learned the blues. He'd studied funk, mastered rock, absorbed jazz and R&B. But the blues, that fundamental language of American music, remained a mystery. The next morning he'd called his tour manager and said 3 words: Chicago. 2 days. Alone. His manager protested. Security concerns. Schedule issues. The label wanted him in the studio. But Prince was firm. I need to hear something real. He'd learned through quiet industry contacts that the Chicago blues masters were gathering at Kingston Mines for a rare reunion jam. No press, no record label executives, just the legends, playing for the people who'd supported them through decades. Prince had arrived in Chicago that afternoon, checked into a mid-range hotel under a fake name, and spent 6 hours walking the South Side. Chess Records, the old Maxwell Street Market, the clubs where legends had been born. Now, sitting in Kingston Mines, he felt like he was about to witness something sacred. On stage, Buddy Guy stepped to the microphone, his voice gravelly and warm. Y'all know why we here tonight. We here because blues ain't dead. Blues ain't dying. Blues is forever. The crowd erupted. The first song was pure Chicago blues magic. Buddy's guitar cried and sang. Junior Wells' harmonica wailed like a train whistle through Mississippi Delta night. Otis Rush added rhythm, subtle and perfect. Jimmy Johnson's bass was so deep you felt it in your chest before you heard it. And when Koko Taylor opened her mouth, the entire club fell silent. Her voice was enormous, not loud, enormous. It filled every corner, reached into every heart. Prince sat in the back corner, tears streaming down his face. This was what he'd been missing. During the 3rd song, Otis Rush's solo meditation on loneliness, someone at the bar turned around to get another drink and saw the man in the back corner. Really saw him. The face under that baseball cap. The distinctive features. Yo, the man said to his friend. Yo, that's Prince. His friend looked, squinted, looked again. Holy shit, that is Prince. The recognition spread through the bar like ripples in water. Whispers, double takes. A few people pulled out cameras, but nobody was rude enough to approach. Not yet. This was a blues club. You respected space. But word reached the stage. Buddy Guy was mid-solo when someone mouthed, Prince, back corner. What happened next became legendary in Chicago blues history. Buddy stopped mid-note. The band looked confused. He scanned the crowd, eyes landing on the back corner. Even in dim light, He recognized that face. A slow smile spread. "Ladies and gentlemen, seems we got a celebrity tonight," the crowd murmured. Prince's heart sank. "Any guitar players in the house?" Buddy's eyes never left Prince. Prince didn't raise his hand. "Don't be shy," Buddy pointed. "The purple boy in the corner. Come up here." 200 faces turned. Prince could leave, walk out, but something kept him seated. The same hunger that brought him to Chicago. Slowly, Prince stood, took off his cap, walked to the stage. The crowd parted, not with reverence, with curiosity. Buddy was grinning. "Well, well, the purple boy. You know real blues or just synth pop?" The crowd laughed. A test. Prince looked at the 5 legends. Combined centuries of blues mastery, lifetimes of pain and joy distilled into music. "I know enough to be humble." The club went quiet. Not the expected answer. Buddy's grin softened. "Humble don't win blues battles, son. I'm not here to battle. I'm here to learn." Have you ever walked into a room where everyone knew more than you, where your accomplishments meant nothing, and only truth mattered? Prince made his choice, in front of 200 people. "What would you have done?" Buddy unplugged his Stratocaster and handed it to Prince. 12-bar blues, E minor. "Show me what you got." Prince took the guitar. Heavy, real mahogany. A working guitar. A blues guitar. He started playing. The 12-bar progression. His technique was clean, precise, but it wasn't blues. After 2 choruses, Buddy held up his hand. Prince stopped. "You got talent, but you ain't got years." Koko Taylor stepped forward, her presence enormous. "Baby, you got technique, but blues ain't about technique. Blues is about truth." Junior Wells nodded. "You playing notes, we playing life." Prince felt his face flush. He'd been called a genius since teenagehood. Magazine covers, millions of records sold. And now these legends were telling him it wasn't good enough, but they were right. "Then teach me," Prince said. The 5 legends looked at each other. A conversation without words. A decision made. "You really want to learn?" Buddy asked. "Yes. You gonna be here all night?" "As long as it takes." Buddy smiled, warmer now. "Then sit down, purple boy. School's in session." What followed wasn't a performance. It was an education. Lesson 1. Buddy Guy. The art of bending Buddy handed Prince an older guitar with higher action. Blues ain't about easy. Make the guitar cry when it don't want to. He demonstrated, bending a note through 3 pitches. Almost human pain and pleasure mixed. It ain't just pushing the string, it's how long you hold it. When you release. Blues is in the space between notes. They worked on 1 bent note for 20 minutes. The crowd watched, fascinated. By the 25th attempt, Prince bent a note that made Buddy nod. "There. You felt it that time." Lesson 2. Otis Rush. The power of silence. Otis was known for economy. 3 notes saying more than 300. He demonstrated mostly silence, punctuated by essential notes. "Young man, blues is a conversation. If you talking all the time, nobody can think. Leave space. Let silence breathe. Call and response." Prince wanted to fill every gap. Otis kept stopping him. "Less. Less. Even less." It went against everything Prince knew. But gradually, he understood. Silence made notes powerful. "Now you're speaking," Otis said. "Now you're talking blues." Lesson 3. Koko Taylor finding soul. Koko took Prince aside. No guitar, just honesty. "Baby, I've seen your videos. You got talent, but you're hiding. Hiding behind production, behind costumes, behind that purple image." Her eyes had seen too much to be fooled. Blues is about being naked, emotionally. You got to show people your scars. She sang a cappella, about loss, betrayal, survival. When she finished, Prince had tears streaming. "That's what I'm talking about. That feeling. Can you do that?" Prince tried. Sang about losing his parents' marriage, being pulled between 2 homes, feeling he didn't belong anywhere. His voice cracked, hands shook. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Koko wiped her eyes. "Now you're singing blues, baby. Now you're singing truth." Lesson 4. Junior Wells, the harmonica's secret junior, held up his harmonica. This little thing is the most human instrument. It breathes like we breathe, cries like we cry. He played phrases that sounded like sobbing, laughing, gasping. The harmonica was an extension of his lungs, his heart. Harmonica can't fake nothing. If you ain't feeling it, it'll expose you. Simple draws and blows, but making them expressive was incredibly difficult. Don't think, just breathe and feel. The harmonica will find notes if your heart's right. 30 minutes of trying, painful to almost musical. But occasionally, Prince hit a phrase that felt right. You're getting there. The harmonica don't care about hit records. Only truth. Lesson 5. Jimmy Johnson, The Art of Subtlety. Jimmy's bass was so subtle you might not notice. But remove it, and everything collapsed. You play everything loud, everything forward, everything center stage. That's what pop requires. But blues requires knowing when to step back, when to support instead of lead. They played together. At first, Prince added fills, flourishes. Jimmy shook his head. Just play the pocket, support the groove. Let someone else be star. Hardest lesson. Prince's career was built on being center. Now, Jimmy asked him to be invisible. Slowly, Prince understood. When he stepped back, music got better. Now you're serving the song. Jimmy smiled. Being a musician instead of a star. By 2 a.m., the pop star had disappeared. In his place was a student, soaked in sweat, fingers raw, ego stripped away. And the night was just getting started. At 2:15 a.m., closing time, the bartender made no move to call last rounds. The owner locked the door from inside and sat down. This was bigger than business hours. Bruce Iglauer, founder of Alligator Records, had been in the corner booth since midnight. What he was witnessing now was something he'd never seen in 30 years. This was transformation in real time. He pulled out a small cassette recorder, not for commercial release, just for memory. The 6 musicians formed a circle on stage. Teaching was done, time to play. They launched into slow blues in A minor. Prince wasn't trying to impress. He was serving the music, supporting the groove, being part of something larger. His guitar playing was simple, so simple some might not notice. But Buddy Guy noticed. Otis Rush noticed. The way Prince now supported instead of demanded attention. The way he left space instead of filling it. He's getting it, Buddy whispered to Otis. Junior Wells took a harmonica solo that made grown men weep. When finished, he handed it to Prince. Your turn. Prince took it, still warm from Junior's breath, and played. Not technically perfect, not the most impressive solo, but honest, raw, real. Everyone could hear the difference. The crowd responded with respectful silence. They recognized transformation. Koko Taylor sang about the Mississippi River. Prince sang harmony, not flashy, just supporting her massive voice. His voice blended instead of standing out. For a man who'd built a career on being unique, this was revolutionary. At 3:30 a.m., 3 straight hours with only water breaks. Prince's fingers bled slightly from the strings. Voice hoarse, shirt soaked through, cap discarded hours ago, and he'd never been happier. Jimmy Johnson started a bass line so deep it came from beneath the floor. Others joined one by one. The groove deepened. Time stopped. 200 people weren't watching anymore. They were participating in something spiritual, a communion. Bruce Iglauer watched from his corner, cassette recording every note. This is why I got into music. This moment. At 4:17 a.m., the jam wound down. Human bodies have limits. The final note hung in the air like a prayer. Then, silence. Complete, reverent silence. Then applause. Not wild, deep, sustained, grateful applause from 200 people who knew they'd witnessed something they would tell their grandchildren about. In the storage room afterward, just a mirror and folding chair, 6 musicians sat in exhausted silence. Buddy spoke first. Purple boy, you came in willing to be wrong. That takes more courage than being right. I was wrong, Prince said quietly. About so many things. I thought I'd figured out music, but I just figured out one tiny corner. Junior nodded. You know the difference between you tonight and 3 hours ago? What? 3 hours ago, you were performing. Now you're playing. There's a difference. Koko stood, her massive frame towering over Prince. She pulled him into a bone-crushing hug. Baby, you walked in as a pop star. You're leaving as family. Otis, quiet as always, shook Prince's hand. You're welcome back any time, but next time, bring humility from the start. Saves time. Jimmy was packing his bass. You know what you learned tonight? Being the best musician ain't about showing off. It's about making everyone else better. Don't forget that when you go back to your pop world. Bruce Iglauer approached. Mr. Prince. Bruce Iglauer. Alligator Records. I recorded tonight, not for commercial release for memory, but I want you to know, this was one of the most important musical events I've ever witnessed. Prince shook his hand. Can I get a copy? Absolutely. It's yours. That cassette would become one of Prince's most treasured possessions. He'd listen late at night when struggling with songs, when ego got too big, when he needed to remember real music. The real impact of that October night wouldn't become clear until 9 months later, when Prince released an album that shocked the industry and proved he'd absorbed every lesson. In July 1987, Prince released Sign O' the Times, a double album that critics immediately recognized as his masterpiece. But what many people didn't notice was how fundamentally different it sounded from anything he'd done before. The guitar work was simpler, more space, more silence. The production was rawer, less polished, more human. Songs like The Cross featured guitar solos that bent notes with emotion rather than technique, exactly what Buddy had taught him. Adore had a vulnerability Prince had never shown before, the kind of emotional nakedness Koko had demanded. In interviews, when asked about the dramatic change in sound, Prince would simply say, I learned some things in Chicago. He never elaborated, never told the full story. The night at Kingston Mines remained his secret. Buddy Guy, watching MTV one night in his Chicago home, saw the Sign O' the Times video and smiled knowingly. He remembered, Buddy said to nobody in particular. Purple Boy remembered the lessons. The 5 legends never did another reunion jam. Life and schedules and the relentless demands of the music business got in the way. But they'd talk about that October night for the rest of their lives, telling the story to anyone who'd listen. Junior Wells, in an interview shortly before his death in 1998, Prince came to us as a student. That's rare for someone that successful. Most stars, they think they know everything already. But Prince, he knew he didn't know. That's wisdom right there. Koko Taylor, in a 2003 interview for a blues documentary, that boy had talent before he walked into Kingston Mines, but he had truth when he walked out. That's what we gave him. Not technique, not tricks. Truth. Otis Rush, in one of his final interviews before his death in 2018, you can teach technique to anyone with enough time. You can't teach humility. Prince already had the first humility when he walked through that door. We just showed him how to use it to serve the music. Jimmy Johnson, still performing blues in his 80s, would occasionally tell the story at his shows. Prince learned that night that supporting the music is more important than showing off. Most musicians never learn that lesson. Some learn it after decades. Prince learned it in 3 hours because he came ready to listen. Buddy Guy still tells the story at his shows in Chicago. Y'all know Prince, right? Purple Rain, all that? Well, let me tell you about the night Prince came to school at Kingston Mines. Let me tell you about the night the Purple Boy became a blues man. The cassette recording Bruce Iglauer made that night never got officially released. Record labels didn't know what to do with it. It didn't fit any category. Too raw for pop, too polished for pure blues, too intimate for commercial release. But bootleg copies circulated among serious music collectors for decades. The audio quality was terrible, recorded on a cheap cassette deck in a noisy bar, with crowd noise and clinking glasses and imperfect levels. But the music was perfect. You could hear Prince's transformation across the 3 hours. The early mistakes when he first picked up Buddy's guitar. The gradual improvement as each master taught him The moment when he stopped trying to be Prince and just started being a musician. After Prince's death in 2016, that bootleg recording became one of the most sought-after pieces of Prince memorabilia in existence. Not for what it showed about Prince at his best, but for what it showed about Prince at his most willing to learn, at his most human, at his most real. Buddy Guy played a tribute concert at Kingston Mines 3 days after Prince died. The club was packed beyond capacity. He played Purple Rain on the same Stratocaster he'd handed to Prince 30 years earlier, the one that had taught Prince how to bend notes with emotion. He came to us that night as a superstar, Buddy said through tears, his voice breaking. But he left as something better. He left as a brother, as family, as someone who understood that music ain't about fame or money or magazine covers. It's about truth, and truth is all that matters in the blues. Rest in peace, Purple Boy. You learned your lessons well, and you never forgot them. Real growth happens when you're willing to be wrong. When you walk into a room full of masters and say, "Teach me." Prince did that in October 1986, and it changed his music forever. It changed him forever. The greatest musicians aren't the ones who know everything. They're the ones who know they don't know everything and have the courage to learn. Share this story with someone who needs to remember humility isn't weakness, it's strength. Comment, what's one lesson you learned when you stopped trying to prove yourself? Subscribe for more untold stories about moments when legends became human, when egos disappeared, and when real music was born.